There we go. No, I think it is the whole stock market thing. There's always this variable that, at one point Kodak was an important company. Then Kodak messed up and now they're gone, right? Pets.com or all these companies, the stock market is littered with companies that are controlled by human beings, and they're offering a service or product that is subject to demand. And then it's subject to leadership and
pricing,
pricing and how people in competition and all these
inflation.
variables. And then if you look at it and you think about like corn is a commodity. It's something that has a handful of variables that affect the price, demand,
Weather,
how many products are made out of corn, how many countries
but
need corn,
weather,
weather, uncontrollable. Weather is uncontrollable. Um,
insects,
what's that?
insects and
Yeah.
pesticides and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that affects the value of corn and the price of corn. Yet it's not the probability of nobody wanting corn anymore. It's not, the probability is like zero. It is the foundation of human kind when it comes to eating, you know, has been since the beginning. So if you look at it, Bitcoin in the same way, as this is a commodity, there's a limit. Unlike corn, there's only a limited amount. So scarcity or availability is limited, whereas corn, you'll grow it and regrow it and find another
Well,
way to grow it.
and if the price of corn goes up, more farmers will plant more corn and switch out of wheat or soybeans and plant corn, and then that'll create a supply greater than the demand, and then price automatically goes down. It's economics 101.
Yeah. So,
Bitcoin is not that.
right. It like defies all taught economics principles other than demand and supply. And that's it. There's no,
Oh yeah,
you know, has no controlling board, has no um, human
governing body has.
factor in it. It's just is what it is. I don't know. I think it's just, I think that's the thing about it. More and more I think about it is my behavior is oftentimes dictated by other human beings. Um, my actions, my achievements are often dictated by other human beings. This is an asset or commodity, whatever you want to call it, that it's only dictated by how many people want to buy it and own it, I guess is how I'll look at it. There's
Well,
no,
again,
you know,
it's a store of value
yeah.
that is really not affected by inflation. It's actually better with deflation.
Mm-hmm.
So, because as prices deflate, the value of this commodity, Bitcoin, increases. So, if your house costs, you'll start thinking in terms of Satoshis. If your house costs, right now, your house is valued at, let's say, 4 Bitcoin. Okay, so that's $280,000,
Yeah.
and then your house goes down in value. Okay, now it's by half. Now it's 2 Bitcoin, but maybe the price of Bitcoin doubled. Okay,
Yeah.
so now your house is worth half a Bitcoin to a Bitcoin. But your Bitcoin is one up. Not like your fiat currency, which never goes up. It's always devaluing.
Clean. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why they like inflation, because it makes the dollars that you pay your loan back with cheaper for someone who's a borrower.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I just it's interesting, like, and granted, it's taken me a number of years to come around to this in this way, but like I was telling Ginger the other night, I was like, I've never been so like clear, like vision of what this could amount to, you know, down the road, in anything.
Potentially. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you gotta check your emotions at the door. I mean, it's a mathematical situation. It's like I told Paul. Paul's an engineer, and he says, I don't really understand Bitcoin. I said, well, you got to spend some time to study it, understand the history, where it came from, what it does, what it replaces, and how it fits into the economic system, ecosystem we're in. I said, and as an engineer, you're going to have an aha moment. It's going to go, bing, okay. I don't
Right.
understand it all the way, but I see what's happening here.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have people like even this week, Larry Fink comes out, Jamie Dimon, and all these guys, like especially Larry Fink, who wasn't a big Bitcoiner, 2 years ago, and then they were all calling it, like Warren Buffett, they call it, rat poison on steroids or whatever. But look at what's happened to it compared to maybe their value of their stock, you know,
Yeah.
compared to the last 5 years even,
Right.
uh, or the value of Berkshire Hathaway, which is a really good solid company. But Berkshire Hathaway is not a commodity. Berkshire Hathaway is a form of store of value, but it has a lot of variables in it, and like you said, the human element in there. And they can always, any stock, any company can always increase the amount of shares they have and dilute, you know, the investor, just like the dollar is diluting it. And if you have a bunch of money in cash and think you're saving money with the inflation rate and the devaluation of the dollar because of all the printing, you're really not. You're losing money. So, my strategy has been I'm taking some of the cash that I would roll over each week into treasuries, and I'm just putting it back into Bitcoin a little bit. I mean, I
Yeah.
already have a stash of Bitcoin, but if you truly study the ecosystem and then add on top of that the number of ETFs that can now do spot Bitcoin, along with the ones that are coming, along with countries that might be buying it, and so why not? And people say, well, it's already too high. I missed it. Well, if it gets to be 100,000, then how are you going to feel?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it goes to 60,000, you still believe in the ecosystem and what it is, then why not buy more? At
Yeah.
that price. So again, I'm looking for return of value, return on my investment. And I mean, would I put 100% of everything I own it? I'm not at that point,
Yeah.
but it's certainly worth now as an investor or someone who's interested in value to decide on a certain percent of your portfolio to maybe put it in. I mean, it's not financial advice, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think it's if you were gonna allocate to a commodity, a portions of your money to commodities, this would fall under that classification.
It is now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a legitimate security now. So if it's a commodity, then um, you know, I'm not going to throw out a percentage, but look up what the average portfolio managers allocate to commodities, and that would give you an answer of the most you probably should put in right now. And then if you're really really committed to it, you know. But
Well,
no, I think the part that I look at is there's going to be volatility in this. If it gets, right now I'm looking at it's like 69,500 $13. There's support where we're at. There's a good chance we're going to run up to the mid 77,000 range. There's also a really good possibility that it will pull back because of the run it's been on since what, mid-February. Yeah, since
I
what,
see it.
February 7th.
It's Yeah, I mean, it's the last 5 days it's been consolidating, right around 69, 70.
Yeah,
And again, everything is visible on the blockchain, so you can see what's happening and in Coinbase, you can see what's going into Coinbase, like we talked earlier. At some point, $1.4 billion of stablecoin just went into Coinbase,
yeah,
according to what things I've read. And it's just not going to sit there because it's not going to make any money sitting there. So it's going to go somewhere. And where's it going to go?
yeah,
I can't say where it's going to go, but I have an idea of where it's going to go.
yeah. Especially it's going into a crypto specific brokerage account.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's total for one account, but it's total 1.4 billion is what I've heard.
that's a
So
lot.
that's huge. I mean,
You
that's
could live
huge.
off that very well for eternity.
And there's also, I read that an outstanding number of coins have come off the grid and back into safe storage, which normally happens when they come into the grid, like somebody takes their safe storage and puts it back into the Coinbase or the account. That usually means they're going to sell it.
Yeah,
When you have a bunch of coins come off and go into storage, like it has happened with this stable coin coming in, that usually means they're taking it off the table and they're going to hold it.
yeah,
So the combination of that plus the stable coin that's coming in to just Coinbase itself tells a story. And
yeah,
I know what the story means in my storytelling, but it may not mean the same in everyone's storytelling. But it's about connecting dots and understanding. But I mean, you've been in the crypto for a while, and I have been since probably 2020, and I'm no expert on it. But like I wrote in the Platinum uh, blog, I know enough about it and how it fits into the situation we're in to know that I want to be a part of this journey. Okay.
yeah,
Would I sell my house and everything to do it? No. Okay. Have people done it? Michael Saylor's putting his whole treasury of his company in it. Okay.
yeah,
That's he last weekend, I think he bought 650, 700 million last weekend at $69,000. And price wasn't even an issue because his belief system is, well, why not? This thing's just going to go up. I mean, we're going to have ups and downs, and you can go look at it. And Bitcoin has, the 4-year cycle that we're now in this is probably our fourth iteration of it coming up. We've had 3 halvings already. We have 3 more to go, basically.
yeah,
Um, and it'll be interesting to see, but again, I think a lot of people don't understand it. And I think if if this does go, ballistic, let's just say it does. Let's say it goes to $1 million a coin, okay, within the next 5 years. How are you going to feel if your friends, got 0.1, okay, at 70,000 Satoshis, okay, that's not a full Bitcoin, that's 0.1, which right now is probably around $7,000 to buy.
right.
How are you going to feel if it goes up to $1 million, okay, in 5 years and you didn't get it, but your friend over here is now taking trips to Tahiti and Bermuda, and
Right.
wherever, because
Yeah.
he bought $7,000 worth, and now it's valued at $1 million for a full Bitcoin, which would give you what, $70,000?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's
that's
one of
that's a
those.
return, and that's quite a return in 5 years, 4 years.
Well, and if I look, it'd probably be the same way I feel times 10 of how I feel like all of the crypto I have bought and sold since 2020. And I look at that and I go, if I just sat down and thought about it,
See, I've never sold a thing.
yeah,
You got to have when you get into something, for me, and this is just how I do it, you got to have a plan for it, and I was telling someone on the Discord that I have basically a crypto portfolio. Okay. And that includes the raw underlying asset, Bitcoin and Ethereum. I've got a little bit of Cardano.
yeah,
Um, and then the stock side of it is the micro strategies and the ETFs now that have come out. Um, that's just that portfolio. And that portfolio is not a swing trade portfolio. That's a long-term portfolio. I'm putting beer money over there for a rainy day.
right,
And just gonna let it go because and it's again, it's money I can afford to lose in this portion of the portfolio. I don't want
yeah,
to lose it. I don't think I'm gonna lose it, but I'm not selling out the house and doing it, although a lot of
right,
people may. But that's basically my style,
yeah.
you know.
I think I'm maybe a little different in that I'm I'm accumulating it via one mining it, but also throwing money into it every month. And really I've come to this conclusion probably as a midlife crisis kind of state of mind of what can be achieved in the next 10 years financially that could allow my wife and I to make a decision on the next, say, 20, 30 years of our lives. Um, and in looking at all of this, I'm like, this could be a very big portion of that decision making if I just stay diligent about dollar cost averaging into it over the next 10 years and having a belief in in my process and what I'm doing. Um, I don't think I've felt this much conviction towards investing like in my whole life, other than myself. You know, I know I can get the biggest return out of myself in my actions and what I know and my that kind of thing. But when it comes to outside of this, I'm looking at this going, for a guy who isn't great at math, this just makes an enormous amount of sense. Um, so this is sort of how I look at it.
Yeah.
Does it mean I won't buy Nvidia at 400 when it reverses? No, I mean I'd definitely consider it, but
Well, and I think that's why you kind of separate your asset classes, okay?
yeah,
So that you don't end up mixing things up so that all of a sudden you're swing trading your SPY ETF, and you're holding the individual stock too long and you miss the swing on it. Everything has to have a purpose and why it fits into your portfolio.
right,
Why I have, a lot of treasuries because it just sits there and it gives me 5.5%. And if I find something like right now, I can pull some of that out and invest it, into whatever asset class I want, whether it's Bitcoin or I see an old, you know, car that I want to buy, as an asset.
yeah,
Same thing. Otherwise, money's always moving. I have Berkshire Hathaway sitting over there on the side. I still swing Berkshire, but not in my investment account.
yeah,
Okay, only in my swing trade account. Uh, and there's just long term over there, and there's some assets that I have that are just income producing assets. And we talk a little bit about some of those, and those are your T bills and TLT kind of things, and that kind of stuff.
mm-hmm,
And REITs would fit into that. That pay you monthly, like realty company of symbol O.
yeah,
That just pay you dividends. That's an income. So do I swing trade those? No, because their purpose is to provide me income, and that's what I would use it for. Would I use charts to tell me when to get in or maybe get out when I wanted to get out or in? Certainly. I don't
mm-hmm,
want to buy at the top. So I want to give myself a little bit of room for price appreciation. But in those assets, it's all about, you know, dividend return, cash flow back to you.
Yeah. But I think here's the thing about, you know, we have this channel that's about investing and traditionally investing in stocks and those kind of assets and teaching swing trading and how to use swing trading from a short-term kind of approach. But more and more I think about like crypto, Bitcoin in particular, the same principles of investing, and let's say it's just more of like I'm looking at it from a long-term perspective. I can apply those things that are being taught in swing trading every day on the channel, and I can apply that on a long-term basis to Bitcoin and how I go about purchasing it. So, what is it doing today? Oh, I see, I look at a chart and I have a better understanding of what's happening today with Bitcoin than if I just was like, to the moon, hodler, diamond hands kind of approach. Instead, I look at it and I go, well, is this, I put my money in this month to buy Bitcoin. Is this now the time to buy it? Yes. And I have this process of making that decision. And that's what I've learned more and more by applying the principles of swing trading that we teach to this on a long-term basis. And honestly, it can all, I mean, that process can be applied to really anything that you do in, in life, in when
Yeah.
you buy assets, that kind of thing. Is now the time to buy commercial real estate? You can apply swing trading, principles and process to that and make a better decision than if you just went, oh yeah, sure, FOMO,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. People will see a stock price go down because of earnings or, guidance. And, oh man, it's on sale. And I look at it and I'm like, no, you can look at a chart and say it has further to go, so I'm
Yeah,
not chasing it down anymore based on, my hunches or intuitions or a little, fairies on my shoulder telling me stuff. I can actually look and say, yeah, it's not ready yet. That's not where I want it to be.
yeah,
When it hits when it hits a hard level of support, then I'll start looking at it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I think,
And you can do that on investments, like if you're going to trade the spies or the Qs, and if you want to do it more long term, we've talked about Paul Turner Jones and just trade off the 200, if you're going to
yeah,
do it in an investment account, and you'd do well in that too.
yeah. I think it goes back to that. Have a process, no matter what your time frame is, have a process that takes the human emotion out of it, you know? It's like I'm looking at Bitcoin right now on a daily chart, and the RSI is what at 57, and it's pointing downward. So is the
Well,
relative
you're,
strength of it?
you're going to
That's
see that. I mean, when you look at Bitcoin it's traded from 76.62 to 69.036. So, you're going to see that when you're dealing with a number that big.
yeah,
You'll see the RSI, but as long as the RSI is above 50, you're
yeah,
good. It's going to fluctuate, and I'm the same with you. You look at the MACD is still below the signal line,
yeah,
you know. Um, but look at what's happening in the last 5 days. You know, the the trading is sideways. It's in a consolidation mode. Go back, 224 was the last time it was in the last day of consolidation. You can see, 2 weeks of consolidation just where it went flat there. Then it spiked up, from 51,000 on 224 to 73,000 on March 14th. Okay, and now we're hovering around 69.70.
yeah,
Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? You know, you can use the patterns and see right now we're in a consolidation phase. We're still trading above the 9 and the 20, the 50 and the 200. That's pretty strong.
yeah.
on a daily chart.
So interesting. But yeah, I think
Yeah, I
that's
mean, and again, like I said, I've never sold anything in my crypto world. You know, I've sold some stocks, as they go up and down, because I will watch charts for stocks. But for me personally, in my what I'm looking at, I'm going to hold on, to my underlying asset of Bitcoin just to see what happens.
yeah. I think it's definitely, I mean, I've shared with you on a number of occasions recently that I look at this and I go, it makes more sense than a lot of different other assets I could buy, you know, and having a plan around allocating to that. But also looking for opportunities of companies who support this, but all this network, this, the whole crypto network thing, but also industries that are going to influence it even more, and so um I don't know. It's pretty cool, pretty nifty, you
It is
know.
until it's not. Like I said,
I think the one thing that really just stands out in my head more and more and more is supply, is scarcity of a asset. You're into cars, I'm into cars. They only make so many, you know, La Ferraris, or there's only so many Enzo
SAVs. Yeah.
Ferraris were made, and probably I think it was like 300 of them were made, and probably less than 200 still exist without being trashed, and that means the value of that asset's going to go up. And I think that's the same principle of what Bitcoin is. Now you get into these other cryptos, and there's so many of them. There's what Dogecoin, which has been on a run here recently. What's the supply of that? Give me a second, I'll tell you.
Like infinity, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Infinity squared.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Okay, here we go. So there are what 143.7 billion in circulation. What would it take for that to get to, you know, $10?
Yeah, that's a
Like,
lot more. That's a lot more than 21 million.
right. I mean, and I think that's the other part of this whole crypto thing is um what is the supply side of each of these coins that are out there? And you really got to look at that, because, you could buy something and think, oh, this is going to the moon, everybody's talking it up. But I mean, if there's multi-billions of it, it's going to take a whole lot to suck the supply out of the marketplace to drive that higher. And I think that's one of those, when you're looking at these different cryptocurrencies, you've got to look at how much supply is available. And most of them are, multi millions, if not billions. And that's what pretty much kills their unless you're going to live another 100 years, uh, as they burn them off. Um, they're fun, it's neat to see Shibu and Dogecoin and a couple others bounce around because of the storytelling behind them. But when it comes to really supply element of it that will affect the price, I think that's something to definitely consider,
So
for
that brings
sure.
up an interesting point because again, it's 21 million Bitcoin are going to be mined, and assuming from what I hear, 7.8 million have been lost forever. So now you're down to 14, 15 million out there, let's say. And so with these ETFs and the demand going up, where is that supply going to come from? Well, from my point of view, it's going to come from the same place that they get supply in stocks. And what's going to happen is hedge funds or ETF funds are going to manage the market by
Mm-hmm.
taking a portion of their Bitcoin that they've already accumulated and selling it. causing the price to come down, like you see in stock, causing the price to come down, getting retail people who have it a chance to panic and get out, and they'll buy it and they'll go right back up. We see that in the stocks all the time.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised, especially in this, since it's a limited supply, that is not the game that happens. And you don't see 20, 30% swing downs, in this asset class.
Right.
So you can't be faint of heart. If you're convicted to it, you're convicted to it. But if you're a faint of heart and the first time you get a 10% drop, which happens quite a bit,
Yeah.
you're gonna be disappointed. You're gonna lose money.
Yeah.
My opinion.
And I think you've got to understand that, now that institutions are able to invest in it, it will become a traded commodity, just as corn is and copper and all these others. So when you do, and because of the volatility behind it, when you do see a 10% drop, just remember there's an institutional investor behind that who's going, I'm going to start accumulating more of it because I have more money.
And where am I going to get it? I'm going to get it from the retail investor that I just scared the hell out of.
Right.
Because I dropped it 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
And that's where if you truly believe in the process of what Bitcoin can be, they call them the Bitcoiners, and they never let go, and they never will.
Yeah.
But those who are inexperienced in it, they'll get out, because number one, they don't understand it. Maybe number two, they put money in there they can't afford to lose, and that's certainly not what you want to do. Just put money. If you got to pay the rent first, you got to pay your kids' tuition, you got to pay their doctor bills, you got to pay for food and all your insurance, and then you can start thinking about something this risky.
Yeah.
But with great risk comes great reward, or great losses too. So
right. True. Yeah. I think it's interesting that I just pulled up an article off of CoinGape, GACO, yeah, about approximately 7.8 million Bitcoin have been lost. And then they list the most famous people who have lost, like like this Rhonda Campert. Rhonda, an early adopter, bought 6 Bitcoin in 2013 when they were priced at $80 each. She spent some of her digital money, but forgot about the rest. In 2017, when Bitcoin's value soared to nearly 20,000, she tried to log in and cash out, but realized she was missing her login details. Ouch.
yeah. Well, same thing. We talked about it last week. The guy whose girlfriend threw out his hard drive. And how many did he have on there? I mean, it was a lot.
Is that James Howells?
Yeah, he's trying to go and get a permission to dig up the landfill to try to find his hard.
He had 7,500, according to this.
Yeah. And there was a guy down in Mexico. He was one of the early ones. I think he was a billionaire. He drowned in the ocean on vacation down there. It didn't leave anyone his key or anything. He's gone.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's one thing I was thinking about the other day is they talk about putting it in cold storage, which means you put it on a hard drive and you keep it off the network. But you got to keep it in some place, right? And there's some complexity to that. And I think that's where and Michael Saylor actually best explained how you should custody it. And I thought it was very good. He says, if you're a guy who's in his 70s and you're shaking like this, and you forget things, probably keeping it on a brokerage, like a Coinbase or Binance or one of these.
I think he actually said that person should just buy the ETF, basically.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. If you're one who's very responsible, very, this, and this, then cold storage may be your route. But the problem is once you take it off cold storage, you got to have keys. There's a little bit of complexity of keeping it. You lose it, it's gone. So
He pretty much said for, unless you think everything's going to collapse and you got to get on a plane and go out of the country where you
yeah,
need to take it with you, I would just keep it on the exchange.
yeah,
It's just as safe there,
yeah,
unless the world goes to hell and you need it with you.
right.
Is basically the three things he said. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think
and
I mean,
it
that's
paid
good
off.
advice. I think most people are probably, it's probably in their best interest to keep it on an exchange, and you keep your, you just make sure you have your username and password really, dialed in.
Well, I think Coinbase now has cold storage within their exchange now, don't they?
I think you're right. I'm not totally sure, but
Yep.
that sounds very familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, there's an
I'm not
element of
sure how
that where they
I'm
still
not sure
have
how that works.
access.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure how that works, but I think they have just come out with that recently.
Yeah. So anyhow, I think it's, I think for the average person, it's, you know, just keeping it on an exchange or just outright buying the ETF. Understand there's limitations of that, but it gets you in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You buy an ETF, you don't own the underlying asset, which is Bitcoin. You don't own it. You own whatever's in there, your share of it until you sell. And that's the value. So basically the value is the value of the ETF price.
Yeah.
If you actually own Bitcoin, like on an exchange like Coinbase or Fidelity, um, you actually own it. Even though on Fidelity right now you cannot take it out yet.
Yeah.
Coinbase you can put it in cold storage, but it's still on an exchange. And at Fidelity you can now look at it as a part of your total portfolio. And I assume that you're probably going to have better tax reporting on Fidelity than you do on Coinbase
Probably. Yeah.
because you'll have your cost basis, and if you sell or trade in and out of it, which I don't do, that'll always be documented pretty
Yeah.
well.
Very true. Yep. So, anyways, I think it's an exciting little time when it comes to Bitcoin.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's now that it's the SEC has approved it for ETFs. It's given it some legitimacy among
yeah,
the advisor community and the institutional community. That you're going to see, your Waddell and Reed guy or James Raymond James guy say, okay, I think we could put 2% in your portfolio with your, 40% bonds and your 58% stocks, and
yeah.
that's how they'll start out, and you'll start seeing that, um, and
What
then they'll be like, and they're going to be behind where we are, which is okay, but again, um, I forget what Michael Saylor said about where you buy it is where you I forget what he said about that where you buy it is your level of understanding or competency in Bitcoin. It's
yeah,
yours.
right. It's a matter of, do you buy it now or do you buy it
Yeah,
$150,000 a coin?
yeah.
So, yeah. Well, it's definitely the next month is going to be very interesting to see what
Well, I
happens
think
with the
we have
halving.
halving coming up. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then normally it takes a little while after having just historically to see a big movement, but again, that was before all this institutional got in, so that's kind of thrown a wrench in being able to go back and look at past halvings because they didn't have that demand that we
Well,
see now.
I think I would not be surprised as we get closer to April 20th, you see more news stories on CNBC and Fox and all of these financial channels talking more and more about it. And you're going to see this thing make a move. And maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
why
think
1.4 billion went into Coinbase today. You
I
know,
think I think we're going to see them. This is just me with no knowledge of anything, but I think we're going to see a move this weekend over the Easter weekend
that'll be
because
interesting.
people are not going to be watching, and just seeing that money move in and just sit there. And I'm looking at 5 days of just a straight line movement, highs and lows,
Yeah.
in Bitcoin. It's amazing.